ゆりこさんです。
皆様こんにちは。尚美学園大学の小島ゆり子です。よろしくお願いいたします。すいません、この発表なんですけれども、まだ出版されてない楽譜のマニュスクリプトをこうやって見せていただくことに対しまして、許可が、ちょっと限られていまして、ウェブ上にはちょっと載せられないということですので、すいませんけれども、この、発表に関しましては、こちら側に私の顔を映していただくということで、よろしくお願いいたします。それで、バティ先生と私との出会いというのは2006年の ICMC ニューヨークオーディエンス大会の時に遡ります。そこから、この EMSAN の、立ち上げのお話を伺いまして、その翌年から、EMS の方に参加させていただいて、ほぼ毎年発表させていただいています。で、毎年英語で発表するものですから、今回も英語で用意してきてしまいました。すいません、バティ先生もいらっしゃることですし、これから英語に切り替えますが、申し訳ありませんけれども、お許しいただければと思います。I assume this people in this room already well know Takemits' water music, so I will jump into close analysis without any explanation of its historical and general information of the piece. For its unique instrumentation and intriguing sonority, I have been interested in this piece for its sound, and I have been deeply interested in his ideas, putting different artistic expressions together with electroacoustic music made of the sound of water drops. I wanted to know performance practice of this piece, but unfortunately I have not seen the performance with no dance, so I put it aside and focused on pure musical analysis of the piece. For analytical point of view, I mostly rely on my knowledge of regular Western musical analysis, which may not seem to fit electroacoustic music area. However, I find it useful to determine the pitch relations. In order to facilitate the procedure, I have sometimes used computer softwares to visualize the pitch analysis of the sound. It has helped me capture non-musical materials. Here is the first page of the manuscript. The piece is started by solo alto flute in G, which sounds perfect fourth lower than written. The solo lasts about 1 minute and 10 seconds. The score is marked center tempo and rubato, and the performer is expected to determine each duration of notes and phrases by sensing the atmosphere of the music. By carefully listening to the piece, we notice the pitches and the intervals in this section somewhat correspond to what is played later in the following sections. This first section seemed to serve as an introductory exposition of thematic elements. The reason why I started to see this piece in the traditional manner of classical music is that there are repetitions of phrases and pitches appearing throughout the piece. I will show you an example. This is a transcription of the first page in concert pitch. You see the circle in the first state. It is a group of pitches which are to repeatedly appear in later sections. I will explain it more later. When we listen to electroacoustic music of any kind, we pay more attention to timbres and sonorities of the sound. Actually, when I first heard the tape part only, I heard that way too. Meanwhile, I was, as I got familiarized with the ensemble version, I came to realize that I hear more pitches in tape part. In order to see if I was not an exception, I asked my graduate students to listen to the tape-only version first and the ensemble version second, and to write down on a sheet of paper what they heard and felt about the piece in terms of pitches, intervals, timbres, and the relations of any of them. After listening of the tape-only version, the students heard the sound as real water drops, like percussion taiko sounds, like piece of woods or wood blocks or temple block sound, even like shishi odoshi. Also, they sometimes heard the sound of metallic bars. When they listened to the ensemble version, they heard the water drop sounds to be unlike water. The pitches are more recognized like instrumental sounds. The students also remarked that the ensemble version was easier for them to capture the form of music. Why the same tape part sounds different? I assume it is related to our focus of listening. The sound of water changes from concrete environmental sounds to some kind of instrumental sound in the course of listening. I myself noticed the smooth transition between the water sounds and the instrumental sounds, especially in some sections later on. Now I try to explain what makes it happen. Here is the page 2 of the score, where taped sound starts after a long and carefully written out instrumental introduction. The absolute timeline starts in the seconds, right here from the moment of the first sound of water. I have circled the first 9 of the sound of water and roughly transcribed pitches. This is the pitch transcription of the beginning 9 tones of water. The pitches spans a quite wide range in 3 octaves from C4 to C#7. As you all know, in electroacoustic music, one semitone is quite a big distance. Because of the fuzziness of microtones, I checked the pitches and registers using audioscope. But even that, sometimes I had to choose pitches by listening and comparing partials. And finally, I was convinced to extract these 9 pitches. Top stave shows the further narrowing down of the 9 pitches in the same register. Here we can see several important aspects. The 3-note motivic cells A and B have the same contour of intervals, that is, 2 semitones up plus 3 semitones down. The cell A is followed by the cell B, transposed up in 1 semitone. Intervallic component of motivic cell C composes a neighboring tone figure. This figure is later related to 2-note alternating movements of a periodic for flute parts. Pitch C is repeatedly appears toward the end. It is the middle note of the pitch span of major third, B flat, B, C, C sharp, D. The cell A and B implies Takemits' constant usage of the octatonic scale that is made of a minor third motivic cell, which can even be concentrated on a semitone and a whole tone combination. Let's take a look at the transmission distribution of pitched materials between the tape part and the instrumental parts. This is page 5 of the score. There's a unique repetitive sound for the tape part. It has approximate descending pitches of D flat to B. They are followed by the first flute playing a rapid phrase which starts with 6 notes: D flat 5, E flat 4, B4, A5, D6, F sharp 6. It is followed by the second flute playing the same phrase in augmented fourth up transposition starting with G. It is once again followed by the alto flute playing the same phrase in the same pitches as the first played flute, starting with D flat. Some of you may have already recognized these pitches, where they come from. The 6 notes of the first flute exactly matches the concert pitch of the rapid phrase of the 6 notes from the introduction. Also, starting notes of D flat and G are the 2 written pitch, which appears at the last of the first section played by the alto flute. Takemits seems to have been very careful about creating harmony, not only instrumental parts, but the also tape part. Let me remind you his words in his essay, My Method of Composition, in the book 音沈黙と計り合えるほどに Confronting Silence. Takemits says, quote, giving harmonious unity to different, sometimes even contradictory things is a necessary discipline for us to live and walk on a wonderful way of life. Sound is continuity and the exposition of movements. For that reason, musical forms made at its convenience is meaningless. To bring noises in well-tempered music tones, it gave me some implication at that time, unquote. At the time of the creation of the piece, Takemits was interested in putting together different musical elements. In order to make a smooth transition from non-measured time to absolute time fixed tape, careful manipulation of the sound equipment must have been needed at the performance. In fact, in this the recording that I heard, while the last note of the alto flute remains, the first attack of the sound of water comes in with perfect timing and dynamics, and we are amazed by the fact that the first sound of the water harmoniously fit in the sound of the alto flute. After a while, we soon noticed the sound of water even have pitches, although they are not as clear as the alto flute sound. It was the moment that a question struck me. Why no musical tones can fit in a typical harmonious tones of the flute? Of course, the fact that the sound of water itself is quite sonorous, and we Japanese people have a great tradition of appreciation of the sound of nature. But particularly in this piece, nothing seems to bother listening the transition from one kind of tone to the other, even played in ensemble. Takemits always composed any piece at the piano to check harmonies by his listening. He must have been very careful about not only the unity of sonorities, but the pitches and timbres when composing the flute parts according to the tape part, vice versa. Thank you for your attention. I will continue to work on this research. Thank you. お願いします。
声出します。日本語でよろしく、有馬と申します。このフルート付き版のすごい特徴で、後半の部分とか真ん中以降だと思うんですけど、ハーモニックピッチって言って、使う音要素だけ、音高だけ決めてて、即興的にやる部分が出てくると思うんですけど、そこの使用するハーモニックピッチとテープパートの分析っていうのはされ
やりました、ちょっと今日省いてしちゃったんですけれども、ハーモニックピッチ3つのフルートにそれぞれに割り当てられている音をよくよく見てみますと、どうやらさっき少し申し上げたんですけれども、オクタトニックスケールの中から選ばれているピッチが多いのではないかなというふうに私は思います。でその5個か6個の音が割り当てられているわけなんですけれども、そのうちの一つだけある一つのオクタトニックスケールの中以外の音が入れられているっていうのが3つとも同じように共通して見られました。これは私自身も作曲する中でやったことがあることでして、そういったことはもしかしたら竹光のコンポジション作曲にあたってのインテンションとしてあったのかなというふうに思われるっていうのがあります。
Yes, I have a question regarding the origin of that piece, because when I heard that piece, I was reminded of the Japanese gardens and Suikin Kutsu. So I was wondering if in your mind, in your analysis, you reached a point where you find the relation with Japanese garden and Suikin Kutsu.
I have been doing some researches on this kind of relation between Japanese tradition and music making too. And Takemits has a really great big combination and really master treatment of those elements together. But for pitch-oriented approach, I was not sure at the time I started this research, and then I'm trying to do it right now. But I think for pitched materials, he derived that from a totally Western kind of musical thought, I think. So at the time, quite well-tempered harmony making. But probably you know that we have Japanese music has very subtle changes of the sonorities and microtones in traditional music. So maybe that's a key to it.
And what about the timing in the Suikin Kutsu, for instance? We cannot predict when, and it's sparse.
Yes. For this piece, I think the flute part has that kind of elements, like especially in the introduction section. It's timing is really out of time. So the performer determines when to start, when to stop. But probably at the end of that introductory section, the engineer should start the tape part really carefully. So the tape part is of course fixed. So it must have been very difficult at that time, the time of the premiere, I think.
どうもありがとうございました。小島さんです。
もし楽譜見たい方がいらっしゃいましたら、私今日持ってますのでいらしてください。なかなかちょっと見れないものだと思います。ありがとうございました。
最初に言わなければいけなかったんですけれども、記録のためにビデオカメラ、写真等を撮っております。今小島さんのは楽譜は写してはいけないということで撮らなかったんですけれども、もしそういう撮影等がまずいというようなことがございましたら、お申し出いただきましたら、いろいろ指導させますのでよろしくお願いいたします。次はバティエさんです。バティエ先生